So good morning or good night, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to another interview of the Shield Dude on a Couch. I'm your host, Hector, and today we're joined by Stuart Popejoy. He's the bass player and keys for the instrumental band Bassoon, and they're about to release their second album, and it's going to be out on November the 17th, and it's called Succumbent. And so, yeah, I'm here with Stuart. So how are you, Stuart?
I'm good. I'm good
as well, right?
Yeah, it's couch land. Like, nothing but couches. I love it.
Nothing but
Couldn't be
couches.
happier.
So awesome. So I was listening to the EP, and sometimes not everyone gets into instrumental stuff, but it's pretty interesting because you have some sludge, some doom, some progginess to it. So for people that don't know the band Bassoon, give us a little bit of history about the band, because I know you put out an album like almost like more than 10 years ago. So it's been a while. So give us a history of of the band for people that maybe haven't discovered the band yet.
Yeah, cool. So I'm Stuart, and the band is Bassoon. The band's been around for a long time, and it started because in the 2000s I was collaborating with Harvey Milk, the post-rock band from Athens, Georgia. And coming out of working with them, I wrote some songs for them on their Special Wishes album and played on that album and toured with them a little, which was super fun. And coming out of that, Steve Tanner, the bassist of that project, and I started working on some stuff where I was playing keyboards and he was playing bass, and I was writing drum machine parts for blast beats. So that was just kind of a fun thing we were doing, and then we were trying to make it like into an actual band. At that time, Steve's actually responsible for the name. He was working in Brooklyn at the time at a place called Diner, a restaurant that's still around. Somebody came to work the desk. It was a musician, and she was like, "Oh yeah, you're a musician. I'm a musician too." He's like, "Oh cool. What instruments do you play?" And she said, "I play bassoon." And he's like, "Bassoon, is that an instrument?" And she's like, "Yes." He's like, "That's crazy. I'm gonna call my band that." And that's the whole story of how the band title, because he'd literally never heard of the instrument. He decided it was the silliest sounding instrument he ever heard, and so he wanted to call the band that. And it's stuck.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if I heard any bassoon on any of the tracks.
Nope. There's bassoon on the first track on the first album. We brought in a bassoonist, but no, it's bass guitar. Well, I play. I've been into heavy music my whole life, but one of my first loves, other than Kiss, was Rush. So Geddy Lee playing keyboard and bass was something I always wanted to get to. So that's what this band. So Steve eventually, went off and did more Harvey Milk stuff, and that's when Sean Moran, the guitarist, and John Mettam, the drummer, joined, and I started playing bass and keyboards. That's the band that recorded that's the band today, and that's the band that recorded the 2012 album, and this is our second LP coming out on vinyl. Nothing's happening lightning fast, but now we're actually out there playing shows and supporting the record and stuff, so it's great.
No, yeah, 11 years later, but a lot of stuff has happened. So after you put out the first one, what have you been doing these years? I'm sure you've been busy with other projects, or were you always wanted to go back to bassoon?
Well, actually, a lot of this material was developed over that course of that time, and I also do have other musical projects that I was writing for as well. There's no real good. We actually did like our first real touring was actually like in 2015 or 2016. So it's really just kind of, New York's a funny place to do heavy music in some ways. Like when we go south, or there's a lot of places. It's really good to get out of New York when you're playing heavy music, because like in New York, it's like, I think people are listening for some of the more sophisticated proggy things going on, but when we get outside of the city, people hear more of the grunt, the sludge, and the doom, and the thrash. and and all the other stuff that mixes together. And it's why I think it's yeah, it's instrumental, but it doesn't ask anything of you in terms of like it's rock music, and it's got all those things going on. And people really, when we get out and get outside of New York, people like, and New York people like it too, but it's a snootier crowd. It just is. It's not, people don't headbang as much. I don't know.
They want their jazz or their
I don't know. I mean, there's heavy music here, of course. It's just
yeah.
It's just not the same somehow.
Yeah, I know there's like a super heavy band called Imperial Triumphant, and I think they're from New
Yeah,
York City.
total
And
blast beat.
yeah, it's
They're great.
I've listened to them. I'm not like really into them, but yeah, I can see the appeal.
Yeah, and then there's like Krallis and Dysrhythmia and a lot of these like more brainy, really advanced kind of noisy metal stuff. So there just isn't a lot of like just riffy, just break down the doors kind of heavy music. And that's why, I mean, getting on, our first album was a self-release, but doing this with Nefarious Industries is really great because there's a lot. I mean, they have a really wide range of music on that label. But one band we're playing with in Chicago on the 10th is Nequient, and I went and saw them play in Brooklyn, and it's just like, those are the kind of guys I want to be on a build with, just like really driving, really heavy, but very original, but also just really, like just the kind of music that it's why we're all in this heavy music. You want music that takes you somewhere,
Yeah, so have you always been, are you more of a fan of instrumental music than music with lyrics per se? Or do you, it just
not
depends on
heavy
the
music.
song?
No, heavy music. I come from like listening to like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and Metallica and Slayer. I'm old. I'm in my 50s, so like, that's where I start, right? And as I said, Rush and Kiss.
Yeah.
So no, I would say I'm almost none. So it's a little bit odd that I have an instrumental band. But there's another instrumental band that I really like called Loincloth. It's the guy, his name's Tanner, that's his first name, I forgot his last name, but we actually played a show, and he stopped by, and one of the things he said after hearing Bassoon, and Loincloth is great if you haven't checked them out. They're out of Richmond.
I'll check them out.
And Breadwinner was the old band that he was in, but 90s stuff. But he put out something, I want to say like 7 years ago. Really super heavy, advanced instrumental metal. Is one of the things he said was that, yeah, it's like, you just want to take the first part of the song and like the last part of the song and just do that, because metal, like classic metal, has all these great intros, right? And all these like stuff where all this crazy stuff happens in the intros. And so you can kind of think of it like that. It's just like all the intros and the outros and like the complicated parts, like it's just that.
Yeah, and sometimes when I listen to instrumental albums, sometimes I think like there's some that like it's like every song goes into each other, so it's like a long song. Or it depends, but you have to be in the mood for it. But yeah, this one has some pretty like heavy and jazzier parts in some parts. So tell me a little bit about the recording of these songs, because I know you record them in Brooklyn with a legendary producer. Talk to me a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, that was great. So as I said, we were working on this material, like some of this material was what we were touring in 2015, and then the first two songs are newer, and this is the first time they're even really being performed. The first two songs, Omnidillant and Succumbent, are really kind of premieres for anybody. All the stuff in the album is new, but some of it we've been playing for a while. So so we had the material to do a record. And through some other projects, I had started working with Tony Maimoni, who is, he's been in music forever. He's a brilliant musician, brilliant engineer, great studio. And so we went in and tracked in 2019, actually. So, the pandemic got in the way of things. We went in and tracked and mixed and pretty much it was in the can right when the pandemic hit. And I wasn't able. I've been actually. I've had to avoid all crowds until recently, just because of some health concerns. So like those have resolved. So now we're able to get back on the road. But there was a little delay there, but it's all good because that led me to Greg and Nefarious and you know and gave us some time to like really get the art together on the album. But yeah, working with Tony was incredible, and it was the kind of thing where he also got that there's a real, even though it's instrumental, there's a very pop, not, you know, there's a very kind of like radio, or like there's an element to this music that really wants to come out, you know, to sound as nice to your ears as possible, kind of ear candy. And he's really responsible for bringing that out and making that real. The first album is a little grungier sounding, and in fact, it doesn't have, it's proggy. It doesn't have kind of the jazzy elements that are more prevalent on this album. So that's kind of a development.
So you put the jazzier stuff for the snooty New York fans so they can enjoy it when they watch you perform.
No, well, weirdly,
I'm kidding.
no, yeah, no, I know. Weirdly, it's kind of in spite of them, you know, like just because like I don't know, like one thing is that I love metal and I love, you know, advanced metal and progressive metal and all this stuff. But one thing I note is that sometimes everything kind of sounds the same. Everything sounds kind of dark, and there's all the same kind of harmonies and the same kind of dissonance and the same kind of like tension with the guitar and the bass and the, you know, and like one of the reasons to do that is just to like bring in another sound, you know, just to make it that, you know, things are sounding one way and then all of a sudden they sound another way, and really like make something sound different with the same instruments. And, you know, really to do that, you have to go some places that like people don't want to go, like just straight up major chords and, you know, straight up like almost happy sounding stuff, so that it can, you know, it's like, you know, one of the things about the bands I was talking about is that they always have their ballads, you know, like Judas Priest.
Oh yeah.
They always have these like really sweet, Judas Priest in particular always has these really sweet ballads, you know, that are like,
Yeah, because when you said Iron Maiden, I'm thinking of an Iron Maiden ballad. Maybe Bring Your
maybe,
Daughter to the Slaughter.
right. Well, theirs, it's actually kind of more some of their instrumental stuff and things like that. But
yeah,
no, it's more like Judas Priest and, you know, and some other examples I'm forgetting of these, like, I mean, even some of the hair metal, like, you know, Motley Crue and some of them, they'd have their like ballads and stuff like that. And the idea was to kind of like balance out all the heaviness and the darkness. Or no, of course, Black Sabbath. I mean, they have like, they've got some interludes that are really like sweet and kind of, you know,
Planet Caravan. Yeah, that's a great like song that's more like trippy. Like
what album is that off of?
Oh, Planet Caravan from Black Sabbath.
No, I know, but which is that an album? Because my thing is, I'm good up till like Black Sabbath 4, or like Technical Ecstasy, and then like I kind of tune out.
Planet Caravan is on Paranoid.
I think oh, okay, okay, all right. I just didn't.
I know Pantera did a cover of it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a more spacey, like more like
right. Yeah, or Fluff. You know, that's another one that actually has keyboards on it. And that's an instrumental off of, I think, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. And I'm going to get, you know, pilloried in the press for not having all my facts straight about Black Sabbath. But
you can have remember everything. So you enjoy we should enjoy more the bass or the keyboards in the music, or you like to mix them up?
It's really mixing them up. And that's another thing. The first album has a lot of tunes that are just bass and really just power trio rock. And increasingly, I wanted to make sure that there was keyboard in every tune. And that's partially just to have a bigger sound, you know, just to like, you know, to be able to harmonize with guitar and, you know, just have more to listen to. But also because I think keyboards in heavy music is a bit underexplored. Like, I think, you know, people need to hear more keyboards in heavy music. It's like, I think it really brings something, fun to the music when you're hearing these sounds that aren't just guitars, you know, and we're instrumental. So I think it's important to, you know, bring in as many sounds as you can.
I think especially for an instrumental band, since you don't have vocals, I think bringing in different instruments give it like an extra like layers and flavor to the songs. Uh, and yeah, this the album's pretty cool. I listened to it and I thought that I love the album closer, Born to Doom, which is like the longest track at almost 8 minutes. And that one really it sounds like that, like a super like doomier prog track. Talk to me a little bit about that one.
That's actually it's both the oldest tune on the album, but it has some of the newest material. So that the kind of really heavy intro of that tune was something that we were playing from the very beginning. But then it just had a kind of quiet, again, a kind of ballady quiet section in the middle, and that was the whole tune. It was like big section and this little kind of like Dungeons and Dragons middle section kind of thing. But then later on, this whole part emerged that has the like harmony, the kind of like Allman Brothers or Iron Maiden like harmony guitar part, or it almost sounds like Brian May, like Queen or something like that. And it really gets into this like keyboard flight, and that we added like like in the late, like probably like 5 years ago, like right before we went into the studio. We kind of added that whole kind of trippy middle section, and it really became like a different song. And that's why it's so long too, is that like it was already a song and then we added this like whole middle section that can even go on longer than that. It's funny, our songs have a tendency to be very compressed. Like they're, like any one of our songs could probably be like 3 times as long. But it's just like, we just, it's always like one statement, then the next, then the next, then the next. And that's the tune that kind of spreads out the most, is Born to Doom.
So when you play live, do you play them like faithfully, or do you like do like jams and improvise?
We do a little. It's pretty faithful. It's pretty close. We have a couple tunes where we have kind of interludes and stuff like that that stretch them out, and then like something like Born to Doom, we might take the improvisational section and extend it. But it's not. It's funny because Sean, John, and I all have backgrounds in different kinds of music, including jazz. So we are comfortable like improvising, all over the place. But I think all of us really appreciate seeing a band with this music, seeing stuff that's like really tight, hits really hard, and is really, really well rehearsed. Like that's part of heavy music, is really. And so if everybody's just jamming all the time, like it can't hit you that hard. It's never gonna like, it's kind of not what the music is. So we don't go too far with it.
Okay. So I'm gonna show the album artwork. So this is the artwork for Succumbent. So it's I don't know exactly what I'm seeing here. Can you talk to me a little bit about what you're trying to convey with this artwork? Because there's a lot of abstract things, but yeah, it looks nice.
Yeah, well, it is. Bassoon's like in the video we just dropped for Penicept, which is the B-side, which launches off the B-side. There's a lot of stuff from our previous band logo, which is this kind of circular mandala thing. And where that all comes out of is there's 7. We do stuff in weird times here, so there's like 7 and 5 and a lot of stuff like that. And so our logo came out of like 7, like, there's 7 letters in bassoon, so that's where this kind of like 7-pointed thing came out of. And then we even, Penicept itself is both in 5 and in 7 as a time signature. So there's all this like 5 and 7 stuff going on. So what ended up happening was like taking pentagons and septagons and putting them together. And the biggest influence on all this actually is like Islamic tile work, mosaics. There's like
interesting.
One time I was in Spain and checked out a lot of the not Spain, sorry, it's in Spain too, but I was in Istanbul in Turkey, and
I've been to the place in Spain that you're referring to. It's like Alhambra Castle, I think.
Yeah. And then of course the mosques in Istanbul, and that really got me into. They have a bunch of like some of that tile stuff gets really tripped out in terms of all the kinds of shapes they make. So that's where a lot of this comes out of, is just like working with those shapes and like letting the kind of you know, subconscious take over of like, you know, like the way this came together looked like a weird fish or a bug to me, but and it became this thing like, wait a minute, it needs eyes. And then once it had eyes, it started coming together as this kind of somewhat malicious, malevolent kind of, it'd be like if you're staring at a tile and then a monster appears out of the tile, like, you know, and starts like haunting you or something. So it's almost like a vision. And then the logo in the corner is actually spells bassoon. A lot of people aren't going to see that, but like that logo in the bottom corner is BASSOON. And it kind of represents this kind of, you know, this kind of David versus Goliath kind of going after this big monster. But it's pretty abstract, so I don't expect anybody to necessarily get any of that.
Yeah, well, it has the cool green and the yellow contrast to it. But yeah, it looks pretty. But I'm like, I gotta ask them, what exactly does the album artwork mean? But
yeah, and on the back cover, it has that bassoon logo even bigger to kind of, you know, show it taking over or something, you know.
Awesome. So out of the new songs here, like, do you have a favorite for you to play live?
Well, I'm really excited about playing the first two tracks, Omnidolent, which was the first single, and Succumbent, because they're the newest. Although the third track is actually, I write all the music with the exception of the third track, which was written by our guitarist, Sean Moran, Ossuarium. And so, I mean, so playing those three songs is like really fun because of all the different places they go. The first one really does some very interesting things with kind of like deconstructing blast beats and then bringing in jazz. The second one is kind of more, if you want to know the one that's a nod to New York, it's more like the second one, because that was after I've been like listening to a lot of Crowless and a lot of dysrhythmia and a lot of this really dissonant stuff, and I wanted to explore stuff that was more, that demanded more of the listener in terms of like longer lines, you know, more dissonant harmonies. But even that one has an ending that like goes into the big like kind of keyboard ballad thing at the end. So I guess I can't stay away from that stuff. But then Sean's tune, the third tune, is like really kind of our most, what do they call it? Jig, or what are jig? You know, like it, like, you know, it's super, super riffy. He wrote these like really, really catchy riffs that like kind of hark back to like more 80s or 90s style stuff, while still, you know, like the harmony in it is very advanced. So I think I think the thing that I always like about bassoon is that like it's actually very challenging music to play live, like a lot of metal is. You know, it's like, and every song is really, really different. So like, you know, like each song requires kind of getting, we're not a band where it's like you've heard the one song, now you've heard the whole band, you know, which I love bands that have a really consistent sound. It's like, you hear one song, and then you kind of got to get into a different headspace for the next song, and then you kind of got to get in a different headspace for the next song. You know, we're rehearsing right now for,
especially with instrumental music. I think it's important to have like different changes in the music. So so tell us about the show that you have this Friday. Where is it going to be?
Yeah, that's going to be at Heart Bar in Bushwick in Brooklyn, and really excited to be playing with faux cyberpunk. They're silk punk, so it's like men and women. I'm not sure if they're all Asian in the group or mainly Asian. They do have some Asian instruments. They have a lot of video with what they do. So it's kind of like heavy music, but with this very performance-y element. Really excited about that. Splinternet, which is a project by John Ehlers, who he has a Bangladeshi is the band that he is probably the band that's best known that he does. So his stuff is always really interesting. That one's more kind of in a heavy keyboard zone. So yeah, really excited about that show, because I think it's just a killer lineup.
Yeah, and after that you have at least 3 more shows. You have one in Chicago, one in Cincinnati, and then one in Louisville.
And we just announced one in Knoxville. So we're still adding shows. We're still adding shows. We're hoping to get Akron and Nashville in there, but those aren't confirmed. So yeah, the first one, as I mentioned, is in Chicago, and again, that's with Nequient, but also a Seethe and Anatomy of a Habit. So that's another amazing bill, and
No,
yeah, and
should
on
be
from there.
awesome shows. I'll post the link of the show so people who are going to, can catch you and obviously pre-order the album that it's going to be physically out on the 17th
Yeah,
or okay.
yeah,
And
I
you're going to
mean,
have it on.
all the dates are different, right? So you got to come for now. You got to come to the shows if you want to get the vinyl, because we have the vinyl at the shows. We also have new
So the
T-shirts.
people
We
who
got all
go
that
this
stuff.
Friday can get the vinyl.
Yeah, if you show up in person, you can get the vinyl at the show.
How many vinyls? Vinyl. I was gonna say vinyls with an S, and no, that's a crime. How many vinyl are you gonna have for Friday show?
Enough.
Enough. Okay, people, you heard it. First come, first served, and well,
Yeah.
you gotta buy the
Right,
vinyl.
right. No, I mean, it could, like there'll be a lot of people there, so it could sell out actually. So yeah, you better rush the
No,
merch table.
you better get there and get the merch. So, yeah, I'm gonna post this so people can know that they can get it first there. If not, after the 17th when it is the official release date. So
Yep.
before I let you go, Stuart, so since you're a huge like Rush fan, like, uh, do you have like what are your favorite Rush albums? Maybe your top three Rush
Albums?
albums and albums, yeah, and
Oh,
why?
okay. Yeah, the albums would be well, of course, Moving Pictures, just because it's start to finish, just such a strong album, and it's the first album that I really listened to. Actually, no, the very first album I listened to was Subdivisions. Um, and if that's the name of the album, it's the album that starts with Subdivisions. I might not have the name right, but then I got into Moving Pictures, so that was the album that really got me going. I really like Farewell to Kings. That's for like super duper prog. But I actually really like what's the name of the album with Spirit of Radio on it? Forgetting. Uh, it's not Spirit of Radio. I'm forgetting the name of that album. It's the one right before Moving Pictures, because it's got Jacob's Ladder on it, and Jacob's Ladder might be kind of Bassoon in a nutshell in a way, because it's like, it's really got heavy stuff, but it's got this great keyboard flight, and it's got, and it's mainly instrumental. There's some lyrics in it. So like Jacob's Ladder, and some people have done some great covers of that tune too. We haven't, but
So
like
maybe
that.
sometime in the future you like you'll do like Geddy Lee and just say like, I'm gonna sing even with my high pitch because
Right.
Geddy Lee has a very unique voice.
Yeah, really high pitched.
Yeah.
He's the best. I mean, he's one of the greatest musicians ever. I mean, it's
Oh
just
yeah, no.
crazy. And just the
Legendary.
fact that the fact that he leaned so hard into the keyboards too, and making it part of the live show and doubling like that. Because I started on piano and then moved to bass. So they're always kind of even for me. And like with Geddy Lee, I never had to decide because he was both. So
Yeah.
but then of
Yeah,
course
no,
he sings too. So I mean, I'm like, I can't keep up with him there. Like I don't have a voice like that. That's for sure.
he does a little bit of everything. So Stuart, it's been fun, chatting with you about Bassoon, about the upcoming album, the shows that you're gonna have. So I'm gonna post the link for people who want to pre-order and the dates of the shows that we have for now. So anything that you like to say to the fans before we go?
Just thanks for listening, and thanks to everybody who's like listening to and playing this music, and thanks to you for like all the people who want to talk about it. I mean, it's something. When I went and saw Nequient and saw some really like advanced hardcore music in Brooklyn, it just made me happy. It's the kind of thing that like it's why we're all doing this. It's just to like have this experience when you go to see the gig, and like and just the places it takes you, there's no music like it. So it just makes me really happy to be back in it.
Awesome. So people, Bassoon album is gonna be out soon, and for people who go to the Friday show, you can buy the vinyl on Friday. So you heard it here. Go on Friday and get the vinyl and some merch before anyone else. So you'll be the first to have it and own it physically and support like more smaller bands. So until next time, people, this is Hector, the Shield Dude on a couch. and I'll see you all right here on the couch. Thank you and good night.